Good morning to all, to everybody. I am very happy to see that some friends are present now. My duty is to present the book of Francesco Monticini, and I say immediately that the greater default of this book is that is written in Italian, and I believe that a lot of people doesn't use it, and it's a pity, because I find that this is a very, very important book for understand the intellectual life of the period of the paleologues. It is not to me to speak about this book. I prefer that Francesco does it. But what I want to say is that in this book we found two attitudes, the Italian one and the French one. Francesco is an Italian scholar, and he arrives in Paris to study with me, together with his professor, Sylvia Ronchet, and we see very clearly that in this book you have one part more attached to the Italian tradition, philological tradition, and on the other side, the French one, to understand the culture of a period, to see the historical background, and to see how we can compose both these elements to understand better a text that apparently is not so important, but Francesco shows very well that this text can learn to us all the questions of the Paleologan period. I mean, you have a commentary on a text of Synesius, an ancient text, but why in this period they took again this text? And I believe that the text, just an important thing, is that Francesco discovered this text. Is a commentary on the text of Synesius, on the dreams. And what is very interesting is that with this commentary, we know one commentary is that of Gregoras, but this one is another one, and we understand very well that is in the beginning of the conflict about the Palamist question. We are in the beginning of this question, and so Francesco underlines the problem of the legitimacy of the classical culture, of the classical tradition in the Paleologan period. So the text and the study that it did is between philological research, edition of the texts, and to find the author, that Eudaimonoianes, who was unknown to us, and in the same time to understand why this text can interest the people at that period. And it is not only a philological and historical study, but also a philosophical one. Now I left Francesco Monticini to present his book.
Thank you very much. Yes, I have only 10 minutes at my disposal. So in this lapse of time, I can only explain that my monograph is divided into two main parts, as Professor Odorico has said. The first one deals with a very specific element, that is to say, a hitherto unedited commentary on Synesius on dreams. When I started my research, another Byzantine commentary was already well known and critically published. That is, of course, the one by Nicephorus Gregoras. But the most important editors of Synesius' works, Nicola Terzaghi, Jacques Lamgros, Noël Aujulat, had already noticed that another Byzantine commentary there existed, of course, another commentary on the same work by Synesius. And this second commentary has been transmitted by two manuscripts. The first one is a Florentine manuscript, Laurentianus Pluteus 60.6, and the other is a Parisian manuscript, Parisinus Graecus 2988. If the Florentine manuscript contains both marginal scholia and interlinear notes, the Parisian manuscript only contains some interlinear notes, so it was evident from the beginning that the most important witness was the Florentine manuscript. While Gregoras' commentary covers the whole work by Synesius, this second commentary stops approximately at the end of the first third of the work. Some philological and codicological elements allowed me to demonstrate that that means the Florentine manuscript is the autograph. That means that the person who wrote the commentary in the Florentine manuscript was the author of the commentary. And so it was possible to search for his writing and for his hand, and so continue the research. And fortunately, but I was helped by some paleographers in this task, I succeeded in finding again his hand, and in particular in a Vatican manuscript, Vaticanus Graecus 184, in which we read some scholia to the Almagest by Ptolemy, and just at the end of this scholia we can read the signature of the scholar who put this exegetical work in the marginal notes, in the margins of this manuscript. And so we can learn that his family name was Evdaimoniannis or Eudaimonoiannes. We don't know his first name, but we know, as I said, his family name, and we know that he was a scholar acquainted with both astronomy and oniromancy, that is to say, some highly cultured and very exclusive matters in Byzantium, and that he lived in the early Paleologan era. So he was contemporary with Nicephorus Gregoras. That's as for the first part of my book. The second part deals with the reason why this work became so interesting for some early paleologan scholars. Of course, Synesius had written it almost 9 centuries before. Synesius on Dreams deals with the inner reality of the human being. And it specifically addresses the relationship between the material realm and the immaterial one. And the final goal of this philosophical research is to pinpoint the actual relationship between the incarnated man and God and the truth. In order to understand the scope of this philosophical research, I think that we should consider that after the Fourth Crusade, the Byzantines found themselves as dealing with a profound identity crisis. And their dilemma was the following: could the ecumenical empire founded by Constantine the Great in the 4th century be restored after the Crusade and continue to fulfill its historical role, that is to say, to preserve and embody the Christian truth until the end of days? Only by pinpointing the actual relationship between the incarnated man and God, so only by pinpointing the ability of the human being to understand God, to reach the truth, could one give an answer to such a dilemma. Because if God is comprehensible, if the human being can somehow understand God, at least partially, his chosen people should firstly search for him search for a mystical union with him, and by participating in the sacramental life of the church as first. And in this case, the Roman Empire is not, the ecumenical empire is not necessary to preserve and embody the Christian truth until the end of the days. But instead, if God is not comprehensible at all for human being, at least during their earthly life, until they are incarnated, in this case, the chosen people should rather search for God in, and this is the only thing that they can do, they should search for him in those reflections of the truth that's to be found in the human paideia, in the human culture. In this case, the ecumenical empire still is necessary to preserve the truth and the Christian truth as well, because the empire is the expression, the manifestation of that human wisdom conveyed by the ancient Greco-Roman paideia. So the ancient culture that in the course of history passed throughout the century, of course, this is the origin, the source of the empire, and the empire is the institution that preserves this culture and this wisdom. So I think I ran out of my time. So if you have some questions, I'm very, very delighted to answer. You can write them if you want to in the